In the last lecture, I introduced you to the concept of glass transition and its practical implications. Now, let's try to understand how glass transition temperature is determined. From previous lectures, we know that food is not in a state of thermodynamic equilibrium but is in a state of dynamic equilibrium. So, we cannot make use of traditional phase diagram to explain its phase behavior. So, what is done is that we extend the phase diagram to accommodate not just the equilibrium conditions but also non equilibrium conditions. Therefore, the diagram used is called state diagram, which gives us an idea whether food is in metastable state or not. An important assumption that we make while making state diagram is that pressure is constant. We know that food contains numerous biomolecules that are capable of reacting with water to varying degrees. So, it's often difficult to draw a phase diagram comprising all these elements. So, what is done in practicality is that we try to make a binary phase diagram considering water for sure as one of the major components capable of undergoing crystallization reactions and the dominant solute in the system. For example, when we consider production of soda crackers, we can draw conclusions based on water salt state diagram. This provides sufficient information of the complex food system and its glass transition temperature. Having said that, it's not straightforward to determine what molecule is dominant within your food system. And why is that the case? Because solutes are not homogeneously distributed within food system. Suppose you're not able to identify what is the dominant solute in your food system, then what do we do is that we have to use multiple binary state diagrams. For instance, your food product contains sugar as well as proteins, and you're not able to determine whether protein is dominant or sucrose is dominant. Then you consider water protein interaction as well as water sucrose interaction. And more often, this is the case that we see in real food system. As real food, you will have a combination of elements interacting with water. On the left hand side, you can see a state diagram. I'll try to explain all the important parameters within this in simple terms. The first important parameter that we have to consider is line ABD. It's also called freezing or melting curve. So when your food product is subjected to a cooling process, there will come a point in time wherein liquid water is converted to ice. So this freezing curve or melting curve will give you an idea about ice production. That is when your ice is produced in your food product and when your solution becomes more concentrated or is rich in solute. Second is your BC line, which is called solubility line. It gives you an idea about maximal concentration of solute at a given temperature present in your solution. That is what is the maximum concentration of solute in your solution at a given temperature. Point B is referred to as eutectic point. So eutectic point is a point where you have coexistence of solid solute, solid solvent and liquid mixture in the same phase. So in case of our food system, we have coexistence of ice and crystallized non-aqueous fraction next to one another. Now we are talking about food system and we have mentioned that food contains equilibrium zone as well as non-equilibrium zone. One such non-equilibrium zone that is shown here is represented by CBDG. This zone, the food is in rubbery state. Moving on, we have point D. At this point, you have maximum ice formation at temperature T-M. When there is maximum ice formation, the concentration of solute reaches C1. An important implication of knowing this value C1 is that at a given point in time, you can determine how much of water is unfrozen in your food product. In other words, you can say that there is always some amount of water that is always unfrozen in your food product. Then on further cooling, you reach temperature T-G. At this temperature, your product enters a glassy state. Above T-G, your product is in rubbery state, and below T-G, your product is in glassy state. One important thing that we have to remember here is that it is not important to reach the temperature T-G for product to enter glassy state. If you look at the state diagram, you can see that curve FEG is thicker than all other curves within the state diagram. This is your glass transition curve. And why is it thicker than rest of the curve? Because glass transition occurs within a temperature range. Thank you for staying with me through the video. In case you have any queries, please feel free to put them in the comment section and I'll get back at the earliest.